Hello, my name is Jack Milne with Tri-County Inspection Company and the House Whisperer Show. I received an email the other day that said, Jack, can you talk about dehumidifiers and humidifiers? So on this segment today, I'm going to talk about dehumidifiers. Somewhere down the road, you're going to see one on humidifiers too, I promise you. So why do we need dehumidification? Primarily because whenever you have a basement and you're subterranean, there's going to be a chance of moisture absorption through the foundation. Now, it depends on your foundation, too. If you're in an older property where you have a stone foundation, well, you're really counting on the mortar joints to try to keep the moisture out. But you know what? That's difficult because there's so many gaps in between those stones. Now, we emanated from stone foundations to cinder block. Now, it's literally that, cinder. It's a soft block. So now the moisture is not only emanating through the tinier mortar joints, but also through the block itself. In the 60s, we moved up to concrete block, a little heavier, a little less porous, but still, we have those mortar joints that are between the block that are prone to absorb moisture and provide something called efflorescence. Now, before we get into poured concrete, let's talk on efflorescence for a second. Efflorescence is a natural emittent of lime that comes from the mortar joints. A lot of people think it's mold. Generally, it's not. But, you know, any of these older walls, you can always seal. Okay, so our best foundation out there right now is our poured foundation. So solid concrete, 12, 8, 16 inches. And so it's really hard for any moisture to work through. However, builders always plan for some means of water emittance, and that's a sump pit, and if necessary, a sump pump. So getting back to dehumidification, in my home, I have two. I have one on the other side of the bearing point, and I have one here in front, behind me here. Now, why do I run two? Well, because my foundation wall is concrete block. Yes, I do have some efflorescence, and again, that's going to be typical. Now, what is good humidity levels in a basement? And that's usually 45 to 65%. My bride wants 0, and guys and gals, there's no such thing as 0. So if you can go anywhere from 30 to 65%, the dehumidifier is doing its job. So behind me is one of my dehumidifiers. Now, what I do is I tend to hide it. I can keep it in a closet here, but around this corner I have something called a cold air return. So what I did is I kind of cut out a section of drywall and put this grid in front of it, so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Right now mine's reading 35%. I have the fan on low. Now, all dehumidifiers come with a bucket. And honestly, I'm not a big fan because it doesn't hold that much water. So typically over a normal weekend, by Monday, I have to drain this again. But most dehumidifiers also come with a hose attachment. You can probably see that little green hose there in the corner. And what that does is that leads to a condensate pump. So a number of years ago, I did a home inspection for a young woman who was handicapped or wheelchair bound, and she bought a house with a crawl space, and we had to dehumidify that space. So I gave her this recommendation of using the condensate pump and draining it somewhere else, because these can pump 30 feet. So I took that same idea and incorporated it in my home. Now, my dehumidifier on the other side of the room goes into my sump pit. So, again, out of sight, out of mind, and no worries. The dehumidifier is also going to come with a filter, so don't forget about that. And on mine, again, it kind of slips right out. Now, this is one that I take to my laundry sink, and I just take my sponge and wipe it down and dry it out, and then I reinsert it. So it's going to also give you instructions that say this is the front, so, you know, pay attention and put it back in. So even though, again, it's out of sight, out of mind, so this is one appliance that's really going to help your basement. Now, in another segment, we're going to talk about maintenance of condensate pumps. It's really amazing how much accumulation they can grow with literally what I call slime, and can impede its operation. So look for that one in the future. So if you like the content, push the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.